All right, we are recording.
Yes.
Go back to the whole Washington website. All right, I thought we would start with some introductions. Kind of a little brief description on who you are and why you're here and why you support whole Washington. Because I think this might be the first time I've seen you in real life, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's awesome. Great to have you. So, Vicki, do you want to go ahead and start with some introductions?
Sure. I have been a part of this movement for over 2 years now. It's hard to believe. And I was out gathering signatures. I really like this first shot of the presentation, the slideshow, because it just shows the hard work of going out and getting signatures. That's the photo that goes with it. And let's see. I don't know. I'm just kind of feeling a little fried right now. I don't have anything else to say.
No worries. I'm in the same boat.
Okay.
Sarah, you're next on my list. You want to go ahead and give a little introduction?
My name is Sarah. I just moved here a few months ago from Chicago. I've worked in healthcare for about 19 years, more or less. I'm a nurse. I'm starting a job at Seattle Children's Hospital. And I've been involved in various campaigns related to social services and insurance. But I mean, one of the things that I've encountered most in my career is just the hell that is navigating insurance for pretty much all of my patients. I've worked with low income, homeless, refugees, wards of the state, everything. And it's just such a nightmare. And it's such a huge barrier to care everywhere. And so I feel pretty passionate about it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and for finding our organization.
Yeah, it was actually a friend of mine who worked at a healthcare for the homeless clinic in Chicago, who lives in Spokane now, who directed me your way. So
oh, awesome.
Great.
All right, Sean, would you like to go next?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sean. I've heard of Hold Washington for 2 years and been following their movements, and I wanted to join up this time. I'm really excited about doing the ballot. I think it's the only way that we're going to get it through the state. I'm a IBEW Local 46 apprentice electrician. Part of our benefit package, we spend $1,500 a month on our premium in our benefit package. And through single payer healthcare, if all the money went back to my check, I would get $13,000 extra a year, and that could help pay for my student loans, save for a house. Planning on having a family soon, so that cost. That's why I'm involved. Also to save lives, do the right thing.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. And just so everyone knows, Sean and I actually went to the 30th Legislative District Democrats and a few days ago, and Sean did this presentation got unanimously endorsed, so it worked. It was great.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Mariana, I see she just stepped away for a second, so maybe when she comes back, she can introduce herself. Oh, there she is. Mariana, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, I will, but this little guy wants to talk too.
Okay.
Can we go to someone else and then come back to me, or am I the last one?
You're the last one, but we can go on the agenda and then come back to you. Okay, so let me find the agenda. So the purpose of this speakers training is to get people from all over the state ready to go give presentations to different legislative district organizations such as the 30th. And DSA, Our Revolution, Indivisibles, basically anybody who will let us come talk to their membership. We want to to go, volunteers to go do that, because we really need to meet a certain threshold of signatures to qualify for the ballot. As most of you know, we did this before. We got 105,000 signatures, which was great. But I think that probably many of us don't want to do it again without the guarantee of making it on the ballot this time, because it's a lot of work. So that's one purpose of looking at these meetings to membership. The other purpose is to get endorsements, like we did at the 30th Legislative District last week. And then finally, to get some donations. And so that's basically the three things that you want to focus on when giving these presentations across the state. I'm going to go ahead and show you, first of all, where you can find the presentations. They are conveniently located on our website. If you go to the information tab, you can go down to literature and resources. And just to repeat, I am recording this so you can always review it later and see again, if you're not able to take notes, see again where these slideshows are. So the first one is just called slideshow. That's the long one. It's, I think, about 16 slides. So if you have like 15 to 20 minutes to give a presentation, that would be the one that you probably want to use. It does go over the national. Now the shorter version doesn't go over the national plans, and we've reduced some of the other slides as well. So you can get this done in about, I'd say, 5 to 10 minutes. It depends on how fast of a talker you are, really. So that's the one we're going to review today, just because generally with these organizations, you're not going to have 15 to 30 minutes on their agenda. They have pretty packed agendas. Even the 30th Legislative District Democrats, we thought we'd have maybe 15 minutes. We had 15 minutes on the agenda, but then things came up. There was drama. Imagine that. And we ended up only getting about 5 to 7 minutes, and Sean did an amazing job, even though we had to like condense down what we were going to say very quickly. All right, so I'm going to open up the shorter version. And if while we're going through this, if you see any errors, like grammatical errors, please let me know. I think we've got it pretty dialed in, but you know, I always miss something. So, Whole Washington presents the path to universal health care. We go over who Whole Washington is, grassroots campaign. Our goal is universal health care via a ballot initiative or through the legislature, and nationally. We do support the national plans as well. We talk a little bit about our first campaign and the achievement there, and then how we got a bill introduced into the legislature this last session, and it will be reintroduced in the 2020 session too. Then we talk a little bit about some of the, Sarah, you might not know this, but we actually hired an economist named Dr. Gerald Friedman to do a funding study for here in Washington State to see how much it'll cost, how we can pay for it. And so there are some slides in here, and they are referenced. There's a little double asterisk that says report. Oh, sorry. The first asterisk says data on slides 3, 4, and 5 from Dr. Gerald Friedman's study of Washington State. So we just kind of, most of the time when you're talking to these organizations, everybody's going to pretty much be on board with universal health care, so you don't have to spend too much time talking about why we need it. I think it's in the Democratic Party platform here in the state. Of course, Our Revolution supports it, DSA supports it. So I wouldn't spend too much time talking about this. I will say what Sean did when he started these slides, he gave a personal story, which I think was really, really great to talk about. And that's something, you know, Sarah mentioned some of your experience in healthcare, and that would be a great thing to talk about while you're reviewing these slides.
Yeah, just to jump in,
Mhm.
I put the personal story on the very first slide as a segue into why we need, like, who we are, is what we're fighting.
Exactly. And I'm going to increase the volume because you're pretty quiet for me, Sean. I'm not sure. Is everybody able to hear Sean? I can't hear him.
I'm having a lot of time hearing him.
Yeah,
Having a hard time, yeah.
You're not
in and out.
muted. I don't know why either, because it doesn't say mute. Well, jump right in later if you can get your audio to work. Okay. So. Okay, and so this is demonstrating how much money the Washington Health Trust will save Washington residents annually, $9 billion. And sometimes you'll get a question about why that's such a big number, and you can just say, I like to give the example of our developed countries who pay less than half of what we do for their healthcare. Due to, having less administration costs and being able to negotiate pharmaceutical prices.
Mm-hmm.
This is a breakdown of how the funding mechanisms for it, and you can kind of just like brush right through. I like to, and this is what Sean did, which I thought was great. Just really emphasize the 8.5% capital gains tax. That's pretty a popular issue right now. There's been a lot of talk about a capital gains tax, and we have a regressive tax structure here in Washington State. The most wealthy in our state don't pay any income tax, and all the rest of us are saddled with a huge amount of sales tax. So kind of want to balance that out through this initiative. And that's what the 8.5% capital gains tax is. And there's it's not on retirement, and it's not on home sales. And then we talk a little bit. This slide's about the savings estimator that's online, because people a lot of the times want to know the real numbers, and that's why we created the savings estimator, so you can put in your real numbers, how much you pay now, and then it'll tell you how much you'll pay under the Washington Health Trust, and then how much you'll save. So that's a great tool if you're getting a lot of repeating questions about, well, how much exactly is it going to cost me? Well, we don't know exactly how much it's going to cost you, like just on paper. You have to go there and put in your income, because it's based on income. And it's a sliding scale, it's progressive. Unlike the rest of our state, which is regressive. And then we have a slide on the benefits: inpatient, outpatient, dental, vision, behavioral health, no deductibles, and it covers prescription drugs. We talk a little bit about Senate Bill 5222, which was the bill that Senator Bob Hasagawa introduced, and it will be in the legislature again in 2020. If they don't give it a hearing, it doesn't pass, we'll be gathering signatures so that we can get it on the ballot, and the people will do the job that the legislators should be doing. Again, I think that's exactly what I just said. If they don't pass it, we will. We talk a little bit about the ballot measure, because some people don't know exactly what a ballot measure is. We're very lucky in Washington State to have the initiative process that we can circumvent the state legislature if they get a lot of money from for-profit insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies, and they're refusing to move on this issue. We can go ahead and take it to the people and get it passed anyways. So this is the what we're doing right now, which we just completed polling, we sent out an email about that. I need to make a post on the whole Washington Frontiers page. We got the results, which was pretty good. The most amazing part of the results, I thought, was in Congressional District 1. Hold on, my dog's barking. Let me close the door. So in Congressional District 1, where Suzanne DelBene is a Democratic representative, she refuses to co-sponsor Medicare for All. But it showed that there's a 60% support for universal health care, Medicare for All in CD1. And usually their excuses in those districts is that there's not, that they kind of are in a purple district and, you know, people, they represent all the people in their purple district. So I thought that was really, that's something we're going to use in the future when we talk to Suzanne DelBene about getting on board with Medicare for All. We have a goal of 3,000 volunteers to get 300,000 signatures in advance of the campaign. Right now we're at about 129,000 pledged signatures. We file in March. The deadline to collect signatures is in January 2021. And unless the legislature passes as is, it'll be on the November 2021 ballot. So this is the most important slide. What can they do? What can the members of that organization do to help us with our goal to help everybody get covered with health care here in Washington State? They can pledge to collect signatures on the sheet, and I'm going to send, anytime you have a presentation you're going to do, I'm going to send you a nice little packet. It's going to have literature, and it's going to have a pledge sheet, and it's going to have remit envelopes and some bumper stickers. So at this point, you'll be talking about, and I have it on the agenda. Let me get back to the agenda. This point, I would talk about how gathering signatures is fun, easy. It's one of the easiest things you can ever gather signatures for universal health care. I've gathered signatures for 2 or 3 different initiative campaigns, and I seriously can just hold up, sign here for universal health care, and people will come into restaurants if I have it in the window. They'll come into restaurants to sign for it. They'll stop you on the street to sign for it. I had lines like at the Women's March, or I'm at Pride Parade, just lines of people waiting to sign it. So that was awesome. And then you could say, like, even pledging 20 signatures helps. No pressure, and we won't be launching until March of 2020, so you have plenty of time. If you're busy on a campaign right now, you're doing a lot of volunteer work right now, don't worry about it. You have plenty of time before we launch the campaign. And then the donations, what I've been doing and what we did at the 30th District Democrats is I said, anybody who raises their hand to get a remit envelope will get a free bumper sticker. So, and then people will raise their hand, you can give them a bumper sticker, and that's a good way to get donations. Let's see. Also, the great thing about legislative district organization meetings is a lot of the times they'll have their senator or House representatives in the meeting. And you can say, make sure you ask your senator or House representative if they support SB 5222. And it's a great way to put pressure on them right then and there. Okay, that's basically it for the slideshow. Does anybody have any questions about it so far?
No.
No?
No.
Pretty straightforward? Yeah, we did a really good, thorough vetting of it last time, and I think it's much better than the original.
I like it. You did a good job.
Thank you.
How many signatures do you need if 103,000 wasn't sufficient?
It's about 270,000, but you want to overshoot that mark.
Yeah.
Because some of them might be invalidated. But it's 8% of however many voters voted in the last gubernatorial election.
Okay.
Georgia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Could we go back to the death slide? You know, with the graph with dots.
Okay.
I think there's, now I'm just putting it out there, I think there's too many words going on. And I
Okay.
think up the image a little more. I think, why do we need universal health care could be like totally different. Could just be like the title of the slide, like death to lack of doctor access.
Okay.
Or, well, you don't need to do it now. I'm just
Okay.
talking.
Okay, and yeah, if you wanted to just whatever you come up with, if you want to send me a direct message, and I can change that.
I think it might be just, you know, too much reading. There's like this little tiny font according to the most report. You know, it's really small for the audience to read.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, you know, I think that could be like, you know, just that. There's 500,000 people without health insurance. And then we can say even more uninsured. And that like gets the point, because what we want them to do is listen to what we have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And the slide is that visual representation for them to like have things click with what we're talking about.
Okay.
I know Alan said he wanted, you know, strong correlation and reference to where it comes from, but I think we can just talk about that.
I mean, it's kind of straightforward to say that, I mean, most people are going to presume that there's a correlation between affordable health insurance and lifespan, you know, mortality and all. So, I mean, I think mentioning that, I don't know that that's shocking. I mean, I think people probably be more shocked by the correlation of the like gradient between income and lifespan, although that's also not that shocking either, but it goes all the way up, you know, the income gradient. But yeah, affordable health insurance, I think people probably get that, and if we stated it, it would probably, but the numbers of uninsured, I think, are important. I agree with Sean.
I don't think that anybody's going to be like getting right up to the screen and trying to understand this data. If we can still talk about the things you guys are talking about, but something like this for people who think this way, it's good for them to know that we've done done our homework. We have the graphs. We did the study. We talked to this person. We did this and that. And then something like this isn't something somebody's going to be like, oh, let's like really look at it during this meeting. But it's going to show that we did that we have already done the research. And this is kind of a way to show that we have. So I'm okay with like simplifying it maybe a little bit, but I think that it's for some people who think like that, who want to know that we really know what we're talking about, and you know that something like this is important.
Well, I think it's possible to have the data on there, but also highlight the most relevant data, the most important stuff, you know, and then relegate some of the busy, because what Sean is saying, and I agree, is that it's so, the words are so busy that it's hard to know what to grasp onto when you're looking at that. But I mean, it's important to show that we've done research and that we have a relevant footnotes and that there's important data here. But also, I think highlighting the most important thing is, you know, and deciding what that is and highlighting it on the page is key. Because there's a lot of words here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, like, Sean, if you want to get back to me about how you think I can rearrange it to make it clearer and stronger, please do. Go ahead. What were you saying? Sorry.
to, yes, that slide, the pie. I think we could break the title and say 9 billion saved annually. And I think we need to blow the pie up. And again, the words on the side are really small, and so I think if everything was bigger, people can see that. I think this slide we need to prepare. I didn't prepare as much as I would like to for this presentation, but I think talking about the relationship of, you know, and like how much we would save from the provider administration, the insurance administration, employer, how those tie into each other, how market power, like what is market power? You know, is it their ability to skyrocket prices up? Just having a good grasp on explaining what that is for people. That's where I tripped up a lot in my presentation.
I have a lot of stories about this.
Oh, great.
Because I mean, working, I mean, I was an HIV case manager, and when I first started in healthcare, and I was, I can't even tell you in that position, you think that you're supposed to be connecting people with social services, but I would literally spend hours on the phone with insurance companies trying to make sure that my patients got the drugs they needed every month. And it was such a nightmare. And you know, like, you can't even focus on healthcare. I can't even tell you how many phone calls happened between the pharmacy, the nurse, and the doctor, because they find out insurance just doesn't cover something, and how much wasted time happens. I mean, if you're waiting at the doctor, your insurance company is probably one of the reasons why, because there's so much of this happening behind the scenes. And so it's just shifted costs. Not to mention the fact that the healthcare for the homeless clinic that I worked at, we actually, we had been fully funded as a healthcare for the homeless clinic, but as funding decreased, we started taking just Medicaid and Medicare. But even getting, as we increased that, we had to fire clinicians to hire billing staff. So you're paying for, so we had an overwhelming number of patients at our clinic, but we had to hire billing staff in order to process all of the payments. And then I worked at a pharmacy too. And I mean, every day, just annoying phone calls with insurance companies trying to figure out what formulary is which and what drug is covered, and oh, this one's not covered, and why, and then calling the doctor. And you know, so there's so much of this is happening behind the scenes that people just are not aware of.
Mm-hmm. I think, to me, market power has to do with the size of the organization, in this case the pharmaceutical companies and the hospitals, and how much leverage they have over costs. They spend a lot on marketing their services and convincing people that they need them. I mean, here in Seattle, you see that with some of the larger organizations like the UW hospital system. They spend a lot of money advertising and convincing people that their services and their doctors are better. And
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's what market power means to me. And the pharmaceutical companies do that too. They market their drugs as being something that you need. And, it might be something as simple as, bladder leakage in elderly women, but it might be something much more complicated. And you would see that with the HIV drugs. They had a lot of leverage because people really needed those drugs. There's, without those drugs, they would go downhill very rapidly. And you also see that with insulin. Insulin skyrocketed because somebody said, hey, people actually need this. And it really boosted their market power over that audience. And it's, what is that? That's the orange slice right there on this graph.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that it's only like about a fifth of the total pie.
Because administration is ridiculously dumb, and you'd think,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean that's what I was talking about. But the market power. I mean, I worked in HIV pharmacy,
Right.
and we had the most profitable pharmacy per square inch, Walgreens, in the country where I worked, because they measure their profit by square inch, and it's
Oh, wow.
because
Okay.
yeah, I don't understand, but anyway,
It
we
makes
had.
sense to somebody somewhere.
Yeah, but you know, the HIV drug, I mean, this was in the early, like mid 2000s, but you know, the drug manufacturers would just come in. We actually had to set and just bother us all day. When I worked at the healthcare for the homeless clinic, they would come in and bother us all day. We actually had to tell them that they had to do something educational, because they would just buy us lunch. They would take us out and wine and dine providers. My nurse practitioner, I mean, she was a great nurse practitioner, but she would change the drugs she was prescribing to these patients like every time a new drug company came in. And it's like it's just so gross. Not to mention, when I was working in mental health, you know, Abilify, which was a huge drug that we were prescribing to children, the generic drug skyrocketed while we were prescribing it. We had to get prior authorizations for all of our kids because the drug was so expensive, and it was generic. And it's because, you know, you have one company that has this, you know, there's no marketing power, there's no negotiation power, and you've got one company who has the generic.
Right. They've got a captive audience.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
happens with a lot of drugs. Like I saw it with
Agreed.
certain, or not to mention, I don't know. I mean, there were some drugs that I worked with where they had some agreement with the state of Illinois, where it was some ADHD drug, and they made us buy the brand name, which was exorbitantly more expensive than generic, but that's the only thing Medicaid would cover. And it didn't make any sense. There's so many crazy stories.
Well, you know, if we really want to start up our story section on our website again, we had like, I don't know, 8 to 10 stories from people across the state. So maybe if you wanted to write one of those down for our relaunch of the story section on our website, I'm not sure if you can talk about like that, but and it can be anonymous too.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to be, you know, sparing in some of the details. But I'm working on the walkathon campaign, but I've also worked in editing, and I'm really actually interested, especially in this whole signature gathering process, you know, in terms of like the social media campaign and using these stories, you know, as we're gathering signatures and meeting with people and kind of putting them up on the internet. I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Because people relate to that.
Yeah, people love watching videos. They connect with
people. Yes. Yeah, videos. I need to do more videos. I've never really done that, but I think that would be fun.
I think that somebody said that One Pair States was doing a series of short videos. Might be kind of useful to take a look at those.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's more of a national effort, but you know, it's also a state. Actually, One Pair States is more of a state-by-state effort. How can we? Yeah. Anyway, long story.
So actually, I have a question. There's some kind of meeting next week, and I just got my schedule. I start my job next week, so I'm not sure actually if I can come to the meeting. But there are multiple organizations working on different initiatives for single pay or for universal healthcare in Washington, or what's this?
We're the only ones who are doing an initiative.
Okay.
An organization that works on a different bill called the WIST bill, and it's basically we took the WIST bill and a few other bills and then put funding in it, and that's how we came up with the initiative. Their bill doesn't have funding, which is it's kind of a big issue.
Yes, I mean, if you don't have funding included, you're kind of screwed.
Right. That's why the California bill, it got almost all the way to passing both chambers and then died because Anthony Rendon said it was woefully incomplete. And it's hard to argue with that when it doesn't have any funding. So we wanted to make sure that our bill had funding in it.
Yes.
But yeah, healthcare is a human right as a coalition of groups like, well, we're part of it, and then NHP and United for Single Payer and like every labor union pretty much in the state. Yeah. So it's an important coalition to be part of, and I hope that they talk about our efforts as well.
Okay.
Sean, did you have any other slides you want to talk about, or do you want
Yeah, just the next 2 slides. So this is a lot of words. I get confused looking at it. I think anybody in the audience kind of stares and like, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
We put it like in a condensed table, like 8.5 payroll tax or 2% payroll tax, and something a little easier to grasp on, and we can explain it verbally for them. But this is
I just don't, looking at it, I don't know it's confusing because you're talking about this 8.5 capital gains tax, but there's different percentages here, and it's hard looking at it to know how they're related to each other.
Personally, I would prefer to get rid of this altogether.
Okay.
I feel like the savings estimator, telling people to go to the savings estimator is way more, it's way easier to understand when it's in front of you with the numbers that you will actually be paying versus like, yeah, off the top of my head, I wouldn't know what exactly, if I'm under the federal poverty level, how much am I going to pay for that premium, which is like the main portion of what most people are going to be paying anyhow. So if it were up to me, I think that I would prefer to get rid of this slide and just talk about the savings estimator. What do you all think?
Well, I think if you can make it easier to understand how all of it's related to each other, I mean, even then maybe not this particular rendition of the slide, but maybe something simpler or, that's more intuitive looking. But yeah, I can't, it actually distracts from what you're saying in the slide because I'm busy trying to figure out what it's talking about when you're talking. So that's all.
Great.
I actually think I think you need the slide. Not that
Yeah.
much, but I think it's important for people to know this bill is funded. This is how we're going to pay for it. It gives people and also it's unfortunate that we have like a right-wing perspective that we have to justify on how we're going to pay for it. But I still think it's important. Like we're not like some pie in the sky hippies.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to completely do that.
It's fine. You did a great job. This is great and it's totally awesome. So thank you so much for all of it.
I do agree that it's way too cluttered. I think that it's great on the fact sheet because if you get one of our big 8.5 by 11 fact sheets, it's got that on the back where you can point to it when somebody, asks a specific question about the funding. But I think that with all those words, you're right. It's just like, it would take too long to like talk about all the exemptions. Like, for example, with the capital gains tax, with the payroll tax, $15,000 of income is exempted. And, we don't have a whole heck of a lot to talk about the fact that home sales are exempted, retirement income is exempted, So if somebody can just plug their numbers into the savings estimator, I think that that's so much more powerful, really. of a tool. Mariana has her hand up.
Maybe that slide without the back of the flyer on it. Maybe it could just be the list. We're gonna pay for it with the investment profit, the capital gains, payroll, a small premium, and employer payroll tax. And that's just kind of the list. Just make it simple.
Okay.
And none of that extra stuff. And that could be available because in our packet we probably get some of those to hand out, right?
Yep.
And they could see that. They could go into more detail on their own or at home or at their table or whatever, but maybe just a list. This is how we're going to pay for it. We have these 4 ways added together equals X amount to pay for everybody. Maybe that would be helpful.
Yeah, and then we slide into this is how we're going to pay for it, and because we pay for it like this, we save this much individually. Oh, I like what you just said. How do you pronounce your name? Mariana?
Mariana.
Mariana. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. That look good? Whoops, that's way too big. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any more or?
Okay. I think this is a little messy. I think we
Oh.
could have not the benefits. This is nice. I like that. The cost estimator. I think like a big picture of like your personal savings. Like if we're going to like an LD, it could be like, this is how much I'm going to save, or this is the average that people are going to save. Like just that photo.
Okay.
And if we go to like a union, we can like we can look up how much they make and plug in the numbers ourselves. Be like, boom, this is how much your journeymen are going to save every year. And that will hit like personal to them. Alternatively, we could like create a couple different slides on how to go through the process of the cost estimator.
Mhm.
You don't need to change everything right now. This is just a suggestion.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I'm going to remember unless you're taking. I guess go through the recording.
It is recorded.
All right.
That's it for me.
Okay.
I think this is perfect with the savings estimator link on there. Then that way, if we could ask for a volunteer to raise their hand and tell us what their numbers is, and we could just do it right there because it only takes a minute.
Mm-hmm.
We could do one right there, and then everybody will be able to relate to that person because they work with them or they, they identify with that person. And if nobody volunteers, then we could just do our own.
Okay.
And then everybody sees it right then and there. There's no gimmick, no goofing off. That's just the way it is,
Sounds good.
I like that. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Shaka, do you want? I think you're next. Maybe I'm talking about the Google Maps.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's see if I can do this.
Okay.
So how do I share?
On the bottom of the screen, there's like a square with an arrow, a green square with an arrow that says share.
Uh-huh. Okay. Boom. You guys see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So my idea to help out the volunteers is that I wanted to let them know visually what is near them. And so I plugged in a whole lot of unions. Political groups, just DSA for now, and then all the legislatures. And so with that, I can like look, all right, and they're all color coded so that, you know, gray is not contacted, yellow, George has already contacted all the LDs, so that's why you see a lot of yellow. Green, we've set a speaking date. Black, they like don't want to talk to us. Blue, we spoke at, and red, we endorse, and all that can be like worked out. But let's say, you know, I live in I live somewhere right here in this area. And I see that, oh, hey, look, I could go speak to SEIU. I could speak to the Actors Guild. I could speak to the who are those people? Anyway, they're a union and they're close to me, and it's easy for me to go travel there. I don't have to go a mile, an hour out of my way, and it's something that I can contribute that's convenient for me. And then, you know, I want people to be able to, we want to talk to as many groups. And like, let's say we want to talk to 300 groups. So like 10 volunteers from each one of those groups. Then I want volunteers to add, oh, hey, you know, you didn't think about the drama clubs or, you know, the reading book clubs. And they can like, that's like my culture or my thing that I do. And they can add a layer and like, you know, input their location. And then you can go speak to those groups.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, this is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's cool.
So I haven't created a how-to yet, but I'm working on that. You can see there's a lot of groups. There's a lot of indivisible groups all over the place. And put all that. So
That's just incredible. Thank you so much.
no problem.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, it also like inspires is like we start talking to people, you know, things change colors. We can see our campaign slowly conquering Washington.
Yes. Like the troops.
Yeah.
The whole Washington troops taking over.
Okay.
Yeah. And then like, you know, if it's too much, you can always click on the layer and get that out of there. Like, oh. So yeah, a lot of things you can play with on the map.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm excited to use it. It's like, I never even dreamed this was possible. It's awesome. Okay,
And
How do we find this?
Bernie Sanders. Yeah, Georgia, is there a way we can add files to the speaker group, or is there a Google Drive folder that lists items for just like volunteers?
I would maybe just link it in the speakers group right now, because I'm concerned if we have too many people, you know, I don't know how your access is. Maybe that's what we can talk about is like, are there access levels? Like if we give somebody a link, can they accidentally delete a whole bunch of the work you've done?
Well, that'd be really sad.
Yeah, so that's my concern with
Open access.
yeah.
Right. I think we would only invite the speakers who
Okay.
are going to work to edit this, and then I will always have like a backup file.
Okay. Good. Okay, yeah, well, if you wanted to share into the Facebook group, we do have a Google Drive that I'll share with you as well, so that you have permissions on that. But mostly all it has right now is our like graphics, our logos, and that sort of thing. So, all right.
About Google Sheets that you have. Is that shared there too?
In the drive or in the whole Washington Volunteers group? I couldn't hear you, sorry.
Oh, for the volunteers group?
Yeah, were you asking was it shared in the volunteers group or in the drive? Because I did share it in the
Drive.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't know if it's in our drive. I did share it in the volunteers group though, but I can definitely move it over to our Google Drive. That's one thing that we need to get more organized with. It would be nice to have like that. I know they have like a Google business package that you can have all of those things together.
But I would hope that people would go to the map, see what's around them, and then they would use the sheets to like fill in the information that you have.
Mm-hmm.
You want to create a separate like blank form for them to like go out and fill, rather than them having access to the master document. So
right.
no one mess with that. That's something that can happen.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Any questions? I have to run to my executive board meeting. Oh.
Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Being on the call. And we, like Sean said, I sent out emails to all the legislative district organizations, and we've been getting a ton of responses back asking us to speak. So I will be putting you all to work hopefully soon to speak to different organizations if you're willing.
Excellent.
Okay, great. Thank you all for being on the call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see
so
you. Nice
much.
to meet you.